Is Miami emerging as the team to beat for transfer running back Damien Martinez?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As the transfer portal carousel continues to turn, I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and also co-host of Locked On ACC. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Recruiting Overlord is about to join us, and every time Brian Smith hops on, he's brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. We have him now with us, recruiting expert here on the Locked On Network. He's also my colleague at allhurricanes.com. Brian Smith. So, Brian, Pete Nakos of On3 last night referred to Miami as the team to watch for running back Damien Martinez, who I think is a guy who checks off all the boxes. We'll talk in a second about the other visits he's going to take, but he does have a multi-day visit locked in with Miami starting 8 days from now. How good of a fit would Martinez be here?
About as computer screen as you can get. Like you design a graphic on a computer and post it to Twitter. That's what this is. 225, 230, had 6.1 yards per carry as a freshman and as a sophomore. He's from the Dallas area. He played prep football against the top programs. He's been in the Pac-12, was probably the best all-around player in the Pac-12 last year in terms of just durability, taking the pounding and all that. I mean, Miami needs a big back. He's got experience. He's proven it. He's electric. He's a power guy. He's really good between the tackles. Miami would hit a home run if Martinez signed with them.
You know, he was clearly the featured back at Oregon State. I think there would be a possibility of him probably still being at least to start the season, because I don't know exactly when Mark Fletcher is going to be back. Like Martinez would be the guy definitely to start the season here. Miami would probably use a little bit more of a committee than what he had at Oregon State. Some people think that would be unattractive for him, but when it comes to preserving your body for the end, I look at it. I think that's probably more attractive to get a little less burn.
This is something I talk to high school kids about. There's only one position I say go somewhere they got a pretty stacked depth chart. That's running back. It's the short shelf at the National Football League level. You don't get paid a lot anyway, so playing one more year there, if you're fortunate enough to get to it, is important. That could be $5 million. I mean, that changes your family's trajectory for generations. So, I mean, normally I wouldn't say this, but go to Bama, go to Miami, go to LSU, go to SC over, no offense, but like Texas Tech or Memphis or whatever. Because if you're getting 30 freaking carries, how much tread you got left on the tires when it's time to go to the combine? Alex Donno is correct. Make sure you protect yourself. And I'm not picking on Oregon State. Their offense under Jonathan Smith, who's now the head coach at Michigan State, was a great fit for him. But he probably would have been the main guy, and they lost a bunch of players. He'd have got the crap beat out of him this year, been banged up, and then gone to the combine and ran a 4.7. You know what I mean? Like, why do that to yourself? I get it. Now, I brought this up to some other people. He's going to set a really unique trend. And you and I were talking before the show. He's got 5 visits lined up, the Canes included, all this kind of stuff. What's the market going to be? Because he's as sure a bet, regardless of position in the portal. Like the last one was Cam Ward, ironically, who's picked Miami. You're not going to find a better fit. I'm curious if we find out a number, because he might push for 7 figures, because if he goes to the right team, he could be the piece that gets you over the top and makes you a top 5 team. Like, he is a workhorse running back that can be an All-American and be a top 30, top 40 pick. If running backs don't normally go first round, early second round, he's one of the rare guys. Catch, block, run, everything that could do it. So this is a special player, and Miami would do very, very well to get him.
Well, we do know the NIL number of what he was going to get had he stayed at Oregon State. It's been a reported 400,000 would have been his NIL
Right.
number for the next season. So, you would imagine he's probably going to find an even better deal at his next stop. And, Brian mentioned the 6.1 yards per carry. I look at Damien Martinez's stats from this past season at Oregon State. Not only does he excel at yards after contact, but he 6.1 yards per carry second season with the Beavers, 194 carries, 1,185 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. So this is an extremely productive featured running back. We did mention multiple official visits coming up. So even if there are experts saying that Miami could be the team to watch here for Martinez, they're not the only team to watch here. This is not a player who entered the portal with the do not contact designation like Caden Proctor just did, like Riley Leonard did in December when he left Duke. He knew exactly where he was going. Damien Martinez is going to go through the process and take multiple visits. Miami will be the final of those. He's got multi-day visits. This is a whirlwind tour within the next 10 days, my friends. He's going to be at Arizona today and tomorrow, Mississippi State on the 19th and 20th of April, Tennessee on the 21st and 22nd, Kentucky on April 23rd and 24th, and then 3-day visit at Miami will cap it off from the 25th to 27th. Now, Brian, a lot of times for high school recruits, we say it's good to either be first or last on the visit list. Does that same rule apply in the transfer portal, or is it a different thing?
They're a little more mature, so I hope it's not as big a deal and they can look at things a little differently. You're trying to win a recruitment with the first visit and get them to cancel, or you're waiting till the end. Just make sure you take that visit at the end so you get the last word. That's the theories behind those two. Kid like Martinez, I think he's going to look at it more business savvy. What can you do for me? Tread on the tires, the money that I get. Is there any sponsorships you can set me up with? There's a lot more moving parts with it because, like, just use Miami. Think about all the different NIL opportunities he would have once he's physically on the ground in Coral Gables. It's a major market. He's going to ask those questions. He's got to take the visits. So I don't think the order matters as much. It's just as long as you present a good plan. And again, Miami's got a really good opportunity. Can't imagine that he wouldn't be interested. Curious, like Tennessee has humongous NIL money. Curious what they're going to pitch. They need a bigger running back too. So he's got good options. This will be a very intriguing recruitment.
We have a lot more players to talk about here with Brian Smith on this episode of Locked On Canes, including a little bit later on. We're going to cover the guy we refer to as he whose name shall not be spoken. We are going to speak his name and wonder where he might end up now that he's in the transfer portal. But I want to talk about an offensive lineman that Miami recruited very heavily when he was coming out of high school, went to USC. He's now in the transfer portal. Miami might be back in the mix for Jason Zandamela. We will talk about him and so much more when we come back. Recruiting Overlord is with us on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. You want to keep it locked. Hey, guys, I know you're keeping it locked to Monopoly Go. My goodness, are we having a good time playing this game? I've got a competitive streak in me, my friends, that started when my father used to kick my entire family's butts playing Monopoly growing up. And my competitive side, I want to take out my vengeance on everyone on this app. I'm sure you've heard of Monopoly Go because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, including amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. Hopefully it's me, but it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Thank you so much for making this Recruiting Overlord episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Folks, if you want to take your everyday or experience to the next level, sign up to become a Locked On Canes insider. I include the link in the show description below. When you become an insider, you get text messages directly from my phone to yours with transfer portal scoops and opinions from yours truly. Breaking news, once they start practicing again, we have live practice updates and all that good stuff. One-on-ones with me right there. my phone to your phone text messages. So try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. So, Brian, my ears perked up when I saw Jason Zandamela enter the transfer portal from USC. Now, I wonder if Miami kind of makes an exception to my rule with a player like this. And they are reportedly, and by all accounts, they are pursuing Zandamela. But I have often said in recent days, Brian, that with limited roster spots, that Miami might be looking for guys who really have an impact this season, whereas Zandamela, to me, would be more of a long-term. But Miami needs a long-term solution at center because they've been using stopgap guys the last couple of years. Matt Lee was phenomenal last year. He was a one and done in the transfer portal. Hopefully Zach Carpenter, who's a one and done out of Indiana, is going to be a good solution. But Miami needs a long-term guy at center. Zandamela can also play guard. You covered this player coming out of high school at Clearwater Academy International. Do you think the juice is worth the squeeze here for Miami?
That is a well put together young man. I've met him, been around him, seen him play. He is pretty much Matt Lee 2.0 in terms of frame, his style, even his demeanor. This is a kid that wants to grind. His original choice was Southern Cal. I believe Florida State and Miami are like right thereafter. He just wanted to go out west because he liked the offense and everything, but he didn't like living out there compared to being in the Southeast. So he's getting back in the portal. I think Miami would do well to get him. And I understand the numbers game. You've got other needs. Like Miami in the secondary probably needs at least one more guy. We all know that. So if there was only one scholarship left, you'd have to pass. But I doubt there's only one. So it really depends on who else you can get. We're going to talk about some other possibilities, but this is a guy that has Sunday ability, quite possibly. It would be hard, especially with Mario and his best friend being the O-line coach. They're O-line guys. I just don't think they would pass on him if Jason wanted to come. Easygoing, team first player, and he's a center. They're hard to find. This is a guy that will probably have 20 plus offers after he's been in the portal for a couple of days, if he doesn't already have 20 plus. So, yeah, I would be surprised if the Canes didn't go after him hard.
You were right to mention the Southeast because Zandamela said the three programs that are on his radar and standing out to him so far are Georgia, Florida, and Miami. So Miami's battling a couple of SEC schools so far for this one. I think Florida State can maybe get back into that mix, but that's not one of the schools that he brought up right now. Something that could work in Miami's favor with Zandamela is a good friend of his and former high school teammate, Isaiah Thomas, just enrolled this year. The safety, he was injured during spring. That's why we didn't see him. But Isaiah Thomas, a safety from Clearwater Academy International, maybe he wants to join forces with his former teammate again.
It never hurts to have a little familiarity. And Isaiah was a kid I knew well, really wanted to go to Miami. Glad he got to go there and everything, enjoyed his visits, etc. Yeah, they're buddies. And a lot of the kids from that program have visited UM. There's a history and a relationship with Jesse, the head coach from Clearwater. He's now at Tarpon Springs High School. There's going to be kids from that area that Miami digs into. They've done a good job in Central Florida in general. So they already had the relationship. This would be a pretty easy recruitment. Not that it's easy to beat Georgia or Florida out for kids, but I mean, the familiarity is already there. They were a finalist. So I'm curious how much weight that carries. Maybe Miami's the favorite. I don't know. But UF and Georgia, I don't believe were finalists the last time. I don't know how much that carries weight. We don't have any precedent. The portal's so new. I can't go back 5 years. It wasn't around 5 years ago. So it's intriguing. I tell you again, though, this is a kid that's got Sunday ability. You have to at least consider taking him.
From the offensive line to the defensive line, this is a player that Miami has offered. They're not the only ones, but they've offered Kent State defensive tackle CJ West. He played 666 defensive snaps last season with 43 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, had 4 pressures on top of that. Played well against Texas A&M this past year, which is nice to see how he stacks up against SEC competition. And there are SEC programs in the mix for him along with Miami. Brian, Miami has offered him. So have LSU, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Wisconsin has offered him, Colorado, Kansas State, Rutgers, and Indiana. This seems like a premier player who's ready to make a jump into the Power Four.
This is why the transfer portal is so intriguing to me. Kent State, it's a Mid-American Conference team. He was probably a guy that was kind of a late developer or something, because guys that are anywhere near 300 pounds that can move, everybody offers them in high school. So he was a late developer. Plays a few years. Now look at him. He's got opportunities across the SEC and Big Ten. That's about as good as it gets. So that's good for him. 315, though, brother. We both know the same deal. We've talked about it for over a year. They've got to have more size inside. This is another chance to get it. And somebody mentioned like Artavius is coming in, and they got Justin Scott. You can't rely on true freshmen, especially in the trenches, offensive or defensive line. What Maui Noah did last year is the exception, not the rule. Although,
Bain.
That's Ruben Bain. That's not what you expect, though. If it happens, it's great. Even Mario couldn't have told you that Bain was going to be that good. There's no way. But at the same time, you can't go wrong with experience, size. It's got some proven production. Your point about A&M, so that shows that he could do something. That's a good sign. That's something I guarantee you Mario and them looked at like, okay, well, he played against a line that's got a bunch of 300-pounders and had some success. You're going to take a chance on a 315-pound guy every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we already know Miami's looking at edge rushers. They have lost Nigel Kelly in the portal. They brought in Romello Height for a recent visit. Here's a player I would argue is even better than Romello Height if Miami can get in the mix for Pittsburgh transfer. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. Deon Hayes. Now Hayes is making headlines for. He said the quiet part out loud when he talked about why he's leaving. I'm sure Pat Narduzzi was not too happy to hear Deon Hayes say he's leaving Pittsburgh because, quote, I don't believe we can win now. He's got one more year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. very you got to respect the brutal honesty. But this is I can go over some of the numbers here with Deon Hayes. This 81 tackles. This is through his career so far. 81 tackles, 27 TFL, 13 sacks, 3 forced fumbles so far, led the ACC in pressure rate last year, 2-time ACC player of the week last season, 1 year of eligibility remaining. I'm sure a number of teams will get in the mix. Hopefully Miami would meet his standard of a place he can win at, Brian.
Well, I mean, he had 10.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks just last year. He's a guy that could be a swing player, strong side edge, play some 3-tech on 3rd and long. And again, the numbers overall, 4-year player in the ACC. Yeah, you have to at least entertain the option. I mean, I don't know exactly how he wants to play or what kind of reps he would want because Miami does have depth. You still got to go after him. Never have enough defensive linemen. We were just talking about that. This is a guy that's an easy pick. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, everybody's going to go after this guy. I'm curious to see what his number is, like I was talking about earlier with Damien Martinez. Got a feeling that Dayon's going to probably have quite a few dollar bills headed his way.
Fair enough. All right. So when we come back, I want to talk about a couple of defensive backs, including, let me say his name. Cormani McClain is in the transfer portal. Now, I've got my opinion on, whether or not Miami will even be in the mix. I wonder if Brian agrees with me, but I do want to kind of wonder where Cormani is going to end up after he's going to be leaving Colorado after only 1 season. We'll talk about a couple of other defensive backs who Miami might actually be after. You know what you want to do, my friends? We're not done yet. Got the recruiting overlord with us on this brand new episode of Locked on Canes. Keep it locked. I'm so happy that we can welcome Yahoo Finance to the family here on Locked on Canes. My friends, I have a retirement account with BlackRock, an investment account with Chase, and I've been using Yahoo Finance to consolidate them in one place, which has made it incredibly easy to manage them. I mean, it's amazing with Yahoo Finance. You can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising costs of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, right? With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested what you can. Now, you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, and that's Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Thank you so much for making this brand new transfer portal edition of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We got the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, with us. So, Brian, Cormani McClain was a 5-star cornerback in the class of 2023 who he left Miami at the altar. He was verbally committed. It came the day of his national signing ceremony at Lakeland High School. They had an orange and green cake for him. He never showed up to the signing day ceremony. Ends up roughly a month or 3 weeks later, flipping to Colorado after 1 year in Boulder. Cormani is back in the transfer portal. Now, Brian, I don't have any reason to believe Miami's going to go in for Cormani, even though obviously this is a guy they recruited and was not long ago the top cornerback in the country. I just feel like the wound is still too fresh there. Now, I am of the mind that something that could make sense for Cormani would be USF, because he's got a great relationship with DeMarcus Van Dyke, who recruited him at Miami, and Coach DVD is coaching the corners at USF, and he's from Lakeland, so it's right around the corner from him. But do you think that McClain may be shooting for a bigger program than the Bulls?
I think NIL will play a part in it. I think other relationships will play a part in it. Some of the coaches, like UF coaches that have moved on, ones at LSU, et cetera. I don't think there's any chance that he's going to just zero in on one thing. He'll look at options. But he is a Florida kid, so one of the Florida schools could be UCF. I have no idea. But at the same time, if he ended up at some place like Tennessee, it wouldn't shock me either, because they've got big NIL and they need defensive players. So Don't count out anything. Should Miami at least kick the tires? I think so. I mean, find out, okay, why did you leave? This is, if nothing else, an opportunity to learn. 5-star kid by everybody. Why did you leave? What happened? Where are you now academically? And just kind of keep a portfolio of some of these high-profile kids that leave. Same day, Tyler Williams, same high school, who Miami was all in on, the receiver from Lakeland High School, also entered the portal from Georgia. That's the more likely kid I think they should go after.
Yeah,
I know Tyler well. He was a kid that academically took 2 math classes, higher-level math classes, as a senior because he wanted to. He beats to a different drum. Like, he's uber athletic, but he's just as smart as he is athletic. So that's just one of those things, man. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I can tell you, Tyler is the last guy that's going to be in trouble. So he just wants a chance to play, and Georgia was loaded at receiver. Miami needs another boundary receiver. Right there it is, so you just don't know, man. Maybe it's Cormani for Miami, and maybe it's not, but I would kick the tires, and definitely kick the tires on Tyler Williams.
I'm glad you brought up Tyler Williams as well, because I think Miami is going to be looking at receivers, and so the buzz on that front has been a little bit quieter than it's been at some of these other positions we discussed. But I like the Tyler Williams shout out. Now, a defensive back who has entered the transfer portal, who I think could be an interesting option. He's played at Western Kentucky. Of course, Miami or wherever he goes will probably be a step up. That's cornerback Anthony Johnson Jr., he's got the South Florida ties, grew up down here, played his high school ball at Norland and Monsignor Pace, graded out as the number 4 cornerback in 2023 last year with the Hilltoppers, a 90.3 overall grade. According to Pro Football Focus, he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. How much do you know, Brian? Maybe you covered him in high school, Anthony Johnson Jr. Do you think he could be potentially a guy who could be or compete for a starting job down here at Miami?
Well, I wonder if he could play some nickel for you, which is always a grind to find somebody to even want to play it. Last year, he, according to PFF, had 595 snaps. Your most important trait is your durability. So he's a guy that can do that. And just kind of looking at his grades and stuff, he struggled a little more against Ohio State than some of the other teams, but he's a consistent DB. And I mean, he had a grade 1 week against Sam Houston where he was 91.5%. So he's pretty good. I don't know him. I don't remember him. I probably covered him at some point at one of the camps, but he's already a proven player at the college level. So if you, in one game against Jacksonville State, he played 96 snaps. That is insane.
Wow.
So I think Miami obviously needs corners. They're going to inquire about this. I would be shocked if they didn't, Alex.
Another corner who's interesting to me is Lejond Cavazos, who is a former
Mhm.
IMG Academy product, started his career at Ohio State, has most recently been at North Carolina, missed most of last year injured. Brian only played in one game last season, but, from what I can gather, like last year at UNC was expected to be his breakout year, and he's got very good speed. So there's a lot of things you have to evaluate, including where he is coming off of injury before you would bring a guy like this in. But very high recruiting pedigree out of IMG, so much so that Ohio State recruited him out of high school, and UNC is a prominent program as well. Do you think someone like Cavazos could be a good option for Miami?
I don't see why not. I mean, he's a bigger, strong kid, another guy that could possibly play nickel. This is one of those you got to do your due diligence. Is he a guy that just can't stay healthy? That's
Right.
always the biggest knock, and it's the biggest reason a guy does or does not make it at a college, let alone the professional level. You'd have to poke and prod and find out all his background from the schools he's been at, Ohio State, NC, because if he can't stay healthy, it doesn't matter. But he was a talented kid. I remember covering him at IMG. Maybe that works out, but I would at least entertain it because Miami needs safeties. They need corners. They're not dominant at either spot. They got a lot of new blood there, some talent, but there's no guarantees. I would kick the tires.
Um, Down the road, Brian, how much do you think Miami might miss Ja'Carri Brown? It's been a big topic of conversation. He left in the portal yesterday. Obviously, the Hurricanes have Cam Ward this year, so they're very well set at starting quarterback. Now, next season, people wonder, would it have been an open competition between the likes of Brown, Emory Williams, Reese Poffenbarger? Would they bring in another transfer? I am of the mind that in a couple years, it's probably going to be Luke Nichols' offense. So maybe you need to bridge that gap for 1 year. But do you think losing a guy like Ja'Carri Brown, is that something that might bite Miami later on?
I say absolutely not. From everything I understood is he couldn't read defenses post snap. That's just the end of it, man. And the offense that he's in, he's not fit. He needs to go somewhere they just constantly use the quarterback as a running threat. Miami's offense is just not a good fit once Dawson got there. I know there's a certain famous Miami celebrity that was bitching and moaning on Twitter yesterday, but that is extremely biased for political reasons. And I'm not, he's wrong. He's not the answer. So we need to look at this a little bit more broadly. Can you make post snap reads? Do you fit the offense? Are you a guy that wants to buy in long term? I give him credit for playing in the bowl game. I mean, they'd have been screwed if he didn't
Yeah.
play. It would have been bad. But I mean, he's just not a fit long term. Miami will replace him. Luke Nichols, a really good quarterback. They'll be fine behind center.
Yeah, and I hope wherever he ends up, he's a great young man. I hope he crushes it. Like I hope he,
Oh,
as
yeah.
long as it's not Florida or Florida State. If it's Florida or Florida State, probably not going to root for you so much. But wherever else he ends up, I hope he develops into a great one. I really do. Huge thank you and shout out to Brian Smith. Follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. Check out his work throughout the Locked On Network, allhurricanes.com. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
We will talk to everyone again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.